Hello everyone, and yeah, welcome to the live video. Thanks for joining. First time I'm doing a live stream. Let me know in the comments if the audio level is right, if you can hear me well, and then yeah, you can also ask me anything you want. Um, what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit some photos. I prepared a um, set of photos. You should see it now that I am going to basically edit for one of the upcoming videos. I will be using Capture One to edit the photos, but if you're a Lightroom user, that should be, thank you, cool that the audio is good. At any time, please let me know if you need it a little bit more loud or, yeah, so I will be using these photos in one of the upcoming videos that I'm planning. And yeah, so what we will have is a couple of medium format shots here from the Mamiya RZ67 that I shot on Portra 400, Kodak Portra 400 that is. And I shot my first roll of Pan F, an ISO 50 black and white film from ILFORD. And let me actually switch back to full screen for now. And I have a screen here where I can see your comments. By the way, I see that we have a delay. I don't know how big it is. I guess it's around 5 to 10 seconds between you writing to me and I seeing the comment. Pan F I shot for the very first time. I love the film so far. Again, let's see how editable it is. So I already did the scanning yesterday and the development the day before. And yeah, I'm really curious how editable it is and how I like it once I processed it. From what I could tell from the scans, and we will zoom in later. Hi, Chasing the Light, and welcome to the stream. Um, so I think it is ultra sharp. We'll see later. What we see when I switch back to Capture One now is, let me zoom into the first photo, or actually the second one. The Portra, I don't know what it is, but for me, hi, Makibot, I don't know if I pronounce it correctly. Welcome. Um, I don't know what it is with Portra. They always come very warm. I guess it's the characteristics of the film. And what we will do here is I will show you how I correct the colors, because this is not how I remember the scene. And the same happens here. I really love the car in the scene when I shot it with the Mamiya, but the greens are absolutely not how they were. So we will correct it later. Now, as I mentioned, we will work with Capture One, but if you are a Lightroom user, I used to be a Lightroom user, so I can also answer questions with regards to Lightroom, and I still have a subscription for the Lightroom, this cloud version. But now I recently switched to Capture One. Nonetheless, everything I do here, you will find in Lightroom as well. And the tools are probably just in a little different place, and they might be called differently. I guess most of the ones that I am using are called exactly the same also here on Capture One. But for me, it is more powerful for what I want to do than Lightroom, and for me, it's also cleaner. But again, since probably a few of you are Capture One users, don't worry at all. And yeah, just ask me if you have any concerns or questions how something goes with Lightroom. What I will tell you right away is I will make use of layers. Layers is something that you might know from Photoshop, for example. Capture One has that as well. Lightroom doesn't have it, or at least yet. And I really appreciate layers. So you will see me also use layers later, maybe, let's see. But what I will do straight away is you will also see a little bit how my workflow is, right? So when I scan a roll of films, how do I go through the photos, and what do I do in Capture One, or what did I used to do in Lightroom? So first of all, let me show you how I use the star system in the gallery with regards to where I'm in my processing. So as you know, with photos in Lightroom or Capture One, Luminar, whatever you use, you can flag them and you can give them stars like 1 star, 2 stars, 3 star, and so on and so forth. And I use that to indicate or remind myself where I am in the editing. So what we will do now is we have here the photos, they have all 0 stars. So what I will do now is I will go through all of them, and the ones that I want to use in the video, I will give 1 star, or I want to edit further, I will give 1 star. I think for this video it will be probably all of them because I need them for the cutting. But if this was a whole roll of film, hi Pablo, and hi from Argentina. It's pretty early there, I guess. Welcome. So what I do is when I have these 36 photos of a roll, or if I shoot digital and I come back with, I don't know, 200 photos, I will go through all of them and I will assign 1 star for all of those that I want to edit. And what I will do is I will choose the 1 star and I already will do cropping if necessary, right? So let me start with this photo here. So this photo, I don't know yet if I will use it. I think I will because I have a scene where I shot it, so you will have the video footage then to how I shot it. So let me just give it a 1. I don't think there's a cropping I will do here. Go to the next one. Here also no cropping. I'm actually quite happy. I think I could crop it a little bit more to make the car bigger, but for me, I think it works like that because it has a foreground and it has a background, and I like the diagonal. So I'll give this also 1 star. This one as well. Now this is the first Pan F photo that I ever shot, by the way. And so let's see. Do we need a cropping here? So, sorry, this photo here I shot with my Leica M6. So Pan F was all shot with the Leica M6 with a 50mm lens, and the color photos you just saw were from the Mamiya RZ67, and they were shot on a 110mm that came with my Mamiya. So the Leica has a 3:2 ratio. I usually try to keep the ratio where it was. I'm not a freestyle cropper, so I'm not using freehand. So here I set up cropping to limit myself 3:2. You see it in the upper right corner. So let's see what we can do here with the cropping. So you immediately see after the scan, it was not a perfect 3:2 yet. So I might want to get rid of a little bit of the sky here. Although I like the bushes here, so I'll sacrifice the left. I wish I shot actually a little bit further down here, now looking at the photo. So I think this one will be the crop that I will be using. 1 star. So again, 1 star is, I like the photo, I want to edit it further, and I'm done with the cropping. So that's what I do with the 1 star. Yeah, this one also needs a little bit of cropping, I think. Especially the bottom. There's too much stuff going on. And here a little bit from the top. I want to bring this street and use it a little bit as a leading line, and I'll put it in the bottom 2/3. Yeah, I guess this is what I will do here with the cropping. Yep, 1 star. This one, I must say, not happy. I think I will not edit it. I'm not sure. I guess I'm not editing it. This one, 1 star. Also not a very, very good shot, but for the video later, I need one of the shots that I took here. What I find distracting here, or actually what I find nice here, is the street bending. I hope you see my mouse, by the way. I'm not sure. I guess maybe one of you can leave in the comments if you see when I move the mouse as well. So I like this little street down here that bends, and there's a car actually. Later we will also zoom in so you will see the sharpness of this film. This is really interesting. And also it was shot with the M6J on a 50mm Elmar. So this was not on one of those ultra sharp, like my 50mm APO Summicron, and still there are details that I've never seen in a black and white film. Ah, cool. Thanks, Chasing the Light. Again, this is, I guess, the the lag between the video and your comments. So what I will do now is I want that street in the bottom. I'm not so interested in the sky, although it's dramatic with the clouds. This is what I'm going to do. Here we also see that the film had some problems or during the scanning, so I'll fix this as well. Let me quickly zoom in. So we will see these spots here. So I don't know, maybe scanner or something in the film, but we will heal that. And yeah, I think this is the crop I want. I'm interested in this little street here mainly. Then here we have the street again. I will use one of these two shots. I don't know if I show both in the video, but I think this one is nice. I guess also the bottom is something that I might want to crop. Also, you see here directly how it always corrects me to the right 3x2. This is, I don't know if it's because of my scanner or you experience the same, but if I scan a 35mm frame, I rarely have really clean 3x2. Ah, cool. Yeah, calling you Serge from now. Thanks, Serge. So let's see, what can we do here? Actually, I don't want to lose this little pole here, so I'm keeping that one. It's too bad that there is in the background the stuff going on, like these houses. I wish they were not there, but they are. Okay, so I guess this is the crop that I'm going to edit later. Oh, here we have a way better shot, according to my taste, than this one here. But the street is not in the middle. I wish I would have moved again. Let me crop this one. I'll edit it and then I'll decide later what I'll do with the video. Here, I don't want to lose the foreground, so I'll keep the foreground. I think I will just, you know what? I will try to put this street on this at least a third on the left. Although then we will lose the river. Okay, this is a tough one. I think this is not a very good shot. As for those who also follow my channel, I'm not the biggest landscape photographer. I am still learning. I have a lot of fun doing it, but there's still a lot of learning to train my eye for landscapes. So I guess also for this live stream and then also the video when you will see it, it's maybe not about the greatest landscape photos in the world, and I really hope that I will get better and better now over time, because I want to get into that as well. But yeah, this is now really more about me editing. And now we have the last one. There is a lot of stuff going on here. The reason I took this photo, by the way, was that I really liked how these little houses here were packed on this stony ground. So this was in Switzerland. I did a road trip to an alpine pass. It was called the Klausen Pass here in Switzerland. And that will also be what that video will be about. And this is close to where the peak is. What I think I see here, and it doesn't happen too often with my photos, but it's not straight. So what I will do here is do cropping and straight. Moved to C1 very recently after years of... Yeah, the 20 was also the version, actually, Ricardo, that made me switch over to Capture One. By the way, talking about Capture One, so I'm not affiliated, this is not sponsored, anything. I just bought it and I wanted to use it. But there's something that I want to point out for those who don't have Capture One and are maybe tempted to get it and are into film photography, especially black and white. There is something you need to know. Capture One, let me quickly go to full screen and talk to you guys. Full screen. So Capture One surprised me with one thing where I almost wanted my money back. And that is, it cannot import grayscale photos. I can't explain it to myself. I used Luminar and Lightroom before, no issues. Capture One just ingests RGB photos. So I contacted also their support. They didn't give me anything on their roadmap when that will be, I wouldn't call it fixed, because it looks like it's not part of their philosophy. So what I did is I wrote a little script. Let me actually show you something. So as many of you who watched the videos that I filmed in the living room have seen, is that I also am an open source user. I really love open source and Linux, and also when ditching my Lightroom and Photoshop, um, I did like a full switch to GIMP. So GIMP is a graphic image manipulation program which is free. It cannot do everything that Photoshop can do, but it can do everything I need. And I wrote a little script here. And if anyone of you is interested in that script, I can make it available to you. I call it Convert to RGB. So I can choose a source folder, I can choose a destination folder, I can choose what format I want. Obviously, I want my scans in Photoshop or in TIFF. I don't want JPEG or PNG for further editing, especially because of the color depth. But I can basically now take, I don't know, like a batch of black and white scans that came directly out of my scanner in grayscale and pump it through GIMP, or actually this tool, and it will do all the conversion for me. And then I can import that into Capture One. So I don't have to go and open each and every photo by hand and then convert it to RGB for the import into Capture One. So back to Capture One. Just checking chats. Okay. So back in Capture One. So I rotated this photo a little bit, so it was tilted. I didn't hold the camera straight. And let's take a look at the crop. There is something very unfortunate here. I have a little bit too much of the foreground here in the bottom part, and then on top there's a car coming down. So I would either want that car gone or less foreground. Let me actually check if I can do something more with the crop, because I don't really want the car. Maybe I'll crop in more radical here. Let me see how this works. Make this one house the main theme. I don't mind, by the way, that there is some road here on top. That's not a problem, because the eyes hopefully anyway go to this this one house. Good. Okay, so guys, that's it. That's basically how I go as a first run through photos. Now, when I have the you're welcome, Ricardo. When I have the 36 frames that I scanned, for example, there are, of course, by far not 36 photos that I edit. So let's now go into editing. So to see what do I do with that second star. So here, this photo, I don't think I will edit a lot. I actually like it. It was not going directly into the sun. It's sharp. Everything here I can see is good. You can also see, of course, the incredible detail that you get out of a medium format camera. What I find, by the way, with Portra, so this is Kodak Portra, is that the shadows are very muddy. So you might see it in the trees as well. And we have a light blue cast. I think I can remove that one. So we can go here into the color tab. You will have, again, just saying in Lightroom the same thing. I'll go to blue and I see if I can desaturate the blue here. See, I desaturated blue and the blue cast is gone. And yeah, so I think this is for now the only edit I will do to this photo, because the rest I like, other than the muddy shadows, which are more a Portra thing than anything we can or want to fix here. A filter on a sky, do you mean like a radiant mask or something? Ah, okay. So what we can do, I personally, for my personal taste, wouldn't, but just so that you see how the layers work here. So I would use a gradient filter here. Yeah, exactly, Serge. I would use a gradient filter. You see this red basically showing how the radiant filter looks like. And now we have on the right side, you see an adjustment layer. Capture One creates it automatically. So everything we do now will just be applied to this gradient filter. So for example, if we now go and, for example, remove highlights, you know, see here to make it a little bit darker. Although for me then it becomes more of almost rainy, but could be a mood. It was not rainy on that day, by the way. Maybe I will keep it like this. And with Capture One, you can now blend in the layer or not. See, so you can like go back and forth between both. And you can add as many layers as you want, as far as I understand Capture One, especially now with the version 20 to every photo, and that is really amazing. You can then remove selected layer just to see it. What I also edited in 20, and Lightroom has this for ages since I use it, is this before and after. So yeah. Anyway, I think what I will also do here is I will just, yeah, I get it a little bit up, 0.24. I raise the exposure just because in the bottom I think it's very dark. The shadows, I think I'll leave it like this. This is not a great photo, but there's not a lot I can do here, to be honest. Maybe like this. I'll keep it like this. I think, again, this is not a very exciting photo in the first place. I think also for you guys it is more interesting maybe to see what I do to this photo here, because here there's so many things I don't like. So first, what I do here, Serge, by the way, talking about exposure, there is exposure warning. In Lightroom, how you get exposure warning is on top in Lightroom. There are triangles in the histogram, so where my mouse is. So there is like one here for the shadows and one here for the highlights that you can activate if you want to see overexposure in your photo. And what we can see here straight away is that we have overexposure in the sky and we have a little bit of underexposure here in the shadows. So we will fix that, but what I want to do first, and it really bothers me, is the colors here. So what I will do here is I'll take this picker, and again, for those who are using Lightroom, there is the same tool. So there's a picker and you can point it to a color, let's say one of the greens here, and now it switches. You see on the right side it switched to the green color, and now I can move my mouse up and down, which saturates or desaturates. See, so I can make it like almost grayscale. So I think the saturation was okay, but the hue is not where it should be. So let's now go and play with the hue to see when do we get it to where I would say that's how it looked like, the grass. I think this one, a little bit less saturation. And this is very tricky, by the way, to get the colors not to look kitschy. I think that is the hardest. And by the way, this is also something I do with digital photos of my Leica MD. I'm mostly happy with the colors that the Leica chips produce, but sometimes there are just some colors that in certain light situations I really have to adjust. So here the hue, I take a little bit away. By the way, also a good trick that I learned is what I do now. So I look on my keyboard or I look at you now, just for a couple of seconds, take the eye away from the photo, or look into the room or just somewhere completely different, and then back on your screen, because that is something where you get a new impression of the photo and if it is where it is supposed to be. So now I must say with the greens I'm really happy. I still think it's very overexposed, and what we will do now is something that I think is the magic bullet for color editing. And I don't know if you know this trick, or it's not a trick, this is color science, but I think this is what makes many photos amazing or super kitschy if you overdo it. But check this out. Here is a levels tool. You find a levels tool in Lightroom, you find it in GIMP, you find it in Photoshop. So what you can do here is compress colors, and that is amazing. So you can go and compress either the whole photo or you can compress individual colors. So what I will do now is I will compress green mainly. So what I will choose is green now. And so we now only see here on the right side in the levels tool, the green. And I will now adjust the highlights and see what happens. So now I took a little bit of this curve away at the bottom. We see now a little bit more overexposure here, which I will fix later. And I will take a little bit of green away here because the background has a weird green. Yeah. So see, these are just like very minor adjustments. Look, if I overdo it, you change the look of a color completely. So this is what I mean with you need to be careful. So this is, I would say, this is not 100% necessary that you do that. But if you do this, and I will also show you in black and white how you can do something with the levels, but in color, you can do so much, especially with skin tones, if you do portraits, if you go to the respective level of RGB, so red, green, or blue, and fix that. And now I want to go to RGB and also see what I can do here with the overall photo. I think there is no other color that is disturbing me. By the way, let me just quickly turn off the exposure warning that you can see the photo how it looks now. And I will go on before and after. So if before and after. And here's also something I see. I think I will take the hue a little bit further down. It's too green now. Also something that you can see if you do this before and after, take your eye away. So we'll take the hue to, instead of 9, to kind of like, yeah, 4.85. Yeah, I think this is where I would keep it. The other one, let me go back to before. This is too yellow. Again, for me, this is a typical Portra issue. Ah, hi T, welcome. Thanks for joining the live stream. Yes, you have auto RGB or auto levels for RGB as well. You know what? Let me do the following. Let me quickly create a clone variant here, and let me do also an auto. Generally, an auto adjusts what Capture One would do to the image. So this is now me just clicking auto and what Capture One did. What you also see here is that they also adjusted, or they, the algorithms also adjusted the greens, because even auto saw it's way too yellow, way too orangey. But again, that's Portra. And so yeah, so here we see the what the computer would have done to the image. And now if I go to mine, to be honest, I switch between both. I think we have the same green. So I think I really nailed the green by hand. The only thing what we see is, and I haven't done it yet because I was just about to do the RGB levels. They are already compressed with the algorithm, which we haven't done yet manually. But yeah, I think other than that, it's pretty much spot on. But I will keep continuing going through my manual process. And yes, you can use auto. And if you're, you can also, by the way, I don't have very good experience with black and white, but you can also use auto exposure, and then you can adjust the auto, right? So you can correct the computer. That's also a different approach. I usually don't do that, but that would also work. So again, let's also do similar like the computer did. We compress the whole RGB space. What do you see, by the way, if I compress the highlights? Let me actually turn on the exposure warning again. You see the curve below change. It presses the colors. And also we see more exposure warning basically. So you should always just like compress the color to a level where you feel comfortable with overexposure. Again, you can fix that, and we will do that now, but don't overdo it. And how you would do it correctly when you do portrait shots, by the way, that's a good point. I don't have a portrait here, but I find that if you want, let's say, perfect skin tones, you should go through the RGB levels individually, and you should compress each of those colors until, so you take the highlight and the shadow, so I'll show you now on the blue here, until you see somewhere, for example, in the shadows, more exposure warning popping up. So you decrease, or you compress until you see the first underexposure warnings, and you do the same for the highlights. And if you do that for all the colors, you will have removed, especially from film, every disturbing color that should not be there. And I have amazing results when it comes to portrait if I do color compression. Again, this is very advanced. Most of you maybe have just played with highlights and shadows, and so as you've seen, I haven't even touched them yet, so we're still just correcting colors here. But now we do the highlights. So we have the exposure warning on, and we have a lot of highlights, and we have here the highlight slider. So if you take this a little bit down, we see how the exposure warning on the reds go away, and yeah, we have no more warnings here, and we would have the same here in the shadows. There is a but here though. Let me take the exposure warning away. Oops. So for my personal taste, but this is just a matter of how you want to edit it, I do not care about the trees in the background too much. And also because they are muddy, because portrait is not exposed very well in those shadows, and it's really not handling the shadows great. So I will now anyway darken the area up there. So I will pull down the shadows even further because I'm not interested in part of the image. So see, I pulled it even further down because the emphasis, at least in this photo, is on the car. Now, the only thing that, and I'm quite happy, by the way, now with this photo, and this is also how I want to keep it. I will just make it a little bit warmer. So what I will do now as a last touch, I will go to the color temperature. Here it's at 4,795. I'll make it a little bit warmer. Maybe like, yeah, let's make a round number. There we go. So I'm also really curious how the colors look on YouTube, by the way. I have a Microsoft Surface here where I can kind of like see it. For me, it's interesting because I have a color calibrated screen here that you don't see in the live stream, but it's color calibrated, so I can really do some nice fine tuning here. But as I can see here on YouTube, it looks good. Yeah, so this is kind of like how I remember it. I think the greens are okay now. I'm fine with some shadows being basically here under exposure warning because I don't want to have that. So this is it. Or maybe actually let me do it 5,500 now that I looked away again. Yeah, there we go. Cool, so I'm happy, and now when I've done all that, I will give it 2 stars. So 2 stars means I've done my cropping and I've done my basic edits. So that's it. Next photo. Oh, sorry, this was the computer one. Yeah, let's switch between both, and let me turn off exposure warning. So this is how I would interpret a photo, and this is how the computer would have done it. I think both look good. I think the computer one is a little bit too cool, but or the algorithmic one. Yeah, calibrated colors help really a lot. I will remove this clone here, by the way. I don't want this one anymore. Delete variant. There we go. Or no, wait, whoop, wrong button. There we go. All right, so this one, here we see again the greens are completely off. So we'll do it quicker now. You guys can, like I said, always ask me questions. So same here, color picker, going on some green. And now, oh, see, it even picked an orange here. There we go. Now that looks more like grass now. Yeah. Exposure warning on. So we see here that the sky is pretty blown out. We'll fix that in a second. Do we have any other color that is a little bit weird? I think we're pretty good on this one, actually. I'm just checking if there is some cyan. I'll turn off the exposure warning. If you scan color films, what happens sometimes is that you get some cyan purple, and I think we have some here in the background. And I'll try to take the saturation down. Yeah, that helps. Yeah, so there is cyan in this photo that we really don't want, and pink. And I see it very often, by the way, on Portra. There we go. That's it, fixed. So green looks good for me. There's no more color cast I can recognize. I want to see something. I don't know if it will turn it a little bit more kitschy, but I think this blue, I want a little bit more saturation here. Just a little bit. 21 hue. Yeah, like that. So now what I've done, if you're wondering what I'm doing, I took the color picker, I clicked on a blue area, and then I dragged again my mouse. If you go up and down, left and right, it will change the hue and the saturation. And so I made it a little bit more blue. I think it's a nice accent. Too bad here, by the way, but I couldn't do anything about it, is it was really overcast. If we would have a blue sky here, we could match those colors. We don't. Like Serge said earlier, what I will try here, I will try a mask just to see if I can fix something here. There we see. There you see how the sky was, by the way. It's really incredible. Every time I see these scans, I scan in 48-bit with a Silverfast AI Studio. It's insane what these files really hold. Like you see here the whole sky structure basically. I don't want it like this, but just so you see, it's incredible what is actually on that film if you really want to pull it back. So I'll pull it back, but just a little bit. Maybe like this. Yeah. Just to give the background a little bit of structure, nothing else. What I will also do is I will add another adjustment layer, second one. So now on the right side you see two adjustment layers, and I will add a second gradient filter here, and that is to take the exposure down here in the bottom. Just a little bit. 0.3, 0.24. Yeah. Cool. All right. So now exposure warning on. We see, by the way, because I put that gradient filter, we see that we have no more blown out highlights on top, but we have them now on the car. So now I'll take down the highlights, fixed it. Car is also fine. Let's zoom in. See, here's a guy. Old Land Rover Defender. For those who have joined later, this is shot on Portra 400 and on the Mamiya RZ67 medium format camera. So you see amazing detail here. All right, so we fixed the highlight, we fixed the colors. I'm happy with the colors now. The only thing again is I think I'll turn down the shadows. Let me quickly check the comments. Yeah, T, that's actually a good point. So I will do also a video in the future where I will talk about why let me quickly switch to me full screen. Here we go, OBS, first time I use it. I'm so happy that, by the way, the live stream worked so well. I'm planning a video where I want to talk about why I develop and scan the film myself. Because there is so much I learned by doing so, and T, you're absolutely right, it can be the chemicals. So I so far have tried just one particular kit of chemicals, which I am happy with, but I will try another one as well in the future. But I tried 3 different labs from really like local store here in around basically walking distance from my house, a very big lab in Italy, and a professional lab here in Zurich. And you are absolutely right. So the chemicals play a role. I must say though that other than the professional lab, I do better job in developing than the other 2 labs that I've tried, sadly. But I think one of the reasons, and I'll discuss that more in the video that I'm going to do, is I think if a lab is small and doesn't have the throughput, and they have these chemicals, oh, sorry, have these chemicals sitting around, and they pull all the film through the same chemicals. Yeah, it could lead to problems, I guess. Let me go back to photo editing. So yeah, and also when I do that video, I will also talk about what I learned when I scan, because when you develop your own film and you're in control of the development time and the chemicals, and you scan it yourself, and you really get to know during scanning, you know, with the Silverfast AI that I use, exactly these color cast things, which a lab scan, you have no control. Either you trust them or you're fine with whatever and do the rest in post, but you can mess up scanning as well a lot, no matter which scanner you choose. By the way, again, same effect, because I was now looking more at the camera, switching away from this. I see that this photo here is now also a little bit too cool, so I'll make this also warmer. This one is on 5,149 Kelvin. The other one I put to 5.5. Let me quickly go to 5.5 to see. Yeah, immediately fixed it. Perfect. It was too cool. Okay, last thing I would do to this shot, and then we move to black and white, where I'm very excited to see Pan F for the first time again. No, never edited before. This is premiere. I just want to pull down the shadows here. There is, again, too much stuff going on here in the background that I'm really not interested in. And it's not just that I'm not interested in, but just pulling that shadow slider down and making those, anyway, brownish, green looking trees over there dark, gives this accent, this contrast. Yeah, I think I'm happy. I think this is what I will keep for that upcoming video. Cool. So 2 stars. Next one. So what I will do now, before I go into black and white editing, is the following. I want to zoom in here together with you now for the very first time to just see how this film actually is. So this one I shot on a Leica M6, for those who joined later, with an Elmar 50mm, so not the sharpest lens on planet Earth, or in the Leica space, let's put it that way. I think it's a fantastic lens, don't get me wrong. And I must say I am blown away. I mostly shoot ILFORD HP5, of course ISO 400, more grainy film. But look at this. And again, this is not medium format. You even see these wires here. This is really for a 35mm. So I am sitting in front of a 27-inch screen. I don't know if you now put your video or this video in full screen, how big you see it, but this is really incredible what I see here. I've never seen such a sharp black and white film. This red is the overexposure, by the way. Okay, this is really amazing. Cool. Okay, let's see how good this one is editable. So black and white. You don't need to do color compression, obviously, so that's pretty nice. The only thing what we will try is here the shadow compression here. See if I pull the shadows, I'll give it contrast here, and if I'll take the highlights, it will compress the whites, which we obviously don't want to do with this film. But if we compress the shadows, it gives it a little bit more mood, and I really like that. And yeah, with black and white, in Capture One, we need to do something that you don't have to do in Lightroom, by the way. So there is there's a tab here that I made, a black and white tab. I need to make enable black and white. So because it's an RGB photo, good. So that's fine. I think here we're good. Let me pull the highlights back. I want to see if there's something in the sky. I know it was just like gray. Okay, with black and white, what is always worth a try, I think, is taking these highlights up a little bit and making this S curve. Maybe not that extreme, like this maybe. Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's it. Maybe a little bit in the mid-tones. Yeah, I think that's it. There's not much else we need to do on this photo. so I have the exposure warning on. So this photo now has 0 highlights blown out, and shadows are also not underexposed. I mean, the exposure, I used the light meter from the Leica, which I know by now, oh, there's a little bit, we can correct that. It's fixed. I really trust this light meter. I know it so well by now, and yeah, I think I'm good. By the way, what I would be interested, I'll take the shadows a little bit down. I would be interested in the chat, if you guys want, what else you would have done to this photo, similar to like Serge said earlier, that he would potentially put a gradient filter somewhere. Is there anyone with any opinion on what they would have done to this photo? If not, I'll switch just to the next one and just keep going. Since we have a little bit of a lag, I'll just wait. While I'm waiting, I'll go up with the exposure. I just saw it. I think it's a little bit too dark. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. I guess not. Cool. So, but yeah. Some shadow work. What shadow work would you do? Like, would you make them... Okay, so Serge, you would put the radiant filter again? Sorry, gradient. Why do I keep saying radiant? I mean, there is, by the way, a radial gradient, but why do I say radiant? So you would put, again, an adjustment layer here. Dramatic. Let's see what we can do. Actually, I like it. I just would pull this a little bit further down. The unfortunate situation, by the way, guys, is this was just gray somehow, and there is actually not a lot of structure I can work with. Look at this. If I pull it completely back, there's barely any cloud structure. If we had Luminar 4, by the way, I don't know if you've ever tried Luminar, but Luminar has sky replacement. Luminar is a tool. I bought it, I think in December, Luminar 4, and I kept the installation. I don't use it for my own photos, just to play around and see where they are. But it's really this thing. If you've watched my video on my development as a photographer, and if you paid attention to my downfall part, I think with Luminar you have everything at your hand to really mess up your photos. But impressive. Like if it was not so buggy, or for me it's too buggy, I think it would be amazing. Let me check the comments. So Carmina said also, yes, sky more dramatic. Stephen, for my contrasty taste, the exposure looks a little bit flat. Okay, yeah, that's true, Steve. The Pan F is not the most contrasty one. So what we can do, so we now have a little bit of drama in the sky. I think I will not pull it further down because there was simply nothing we can make. Let me go back to the background. If you guys want to play with contrast, I rarely do. There is a contrast slider here where you can either flatten it or give it more contrast. I think, Steve, you have a good point. Especially with black and white, contrasts can really help. What I can only say is you need to be very careful. So I will zoom in now, and now I will play with contrast zoomed in, here, because then you really see what is going on and how far you should go before you overdo it, before you get into this place where you don't want to go or you don't want to be. So also we see now that we have underexposure here with contrast 33. So I might pull it a little bit back. I don't mind a little bit underexposure. But Steve, that was a good point. So the contrast, I think I like it also a little bit more now. What is good about this film, and T, I'll read your comment in a second. I just saw that you wrote something. What is very good about this film, just first impressions, we will look at the other photos. And again, this is the very first time I am editing Pan F. I really like how editable it is. Let's quickly jump to before and after. So we went from this here, and like Steve pointed out, very flat, to this here. Look at this. This is impressive. Like, impressive, and we have not even like sharpened the image or anything. We can count little stones here. this is really, I think for landscapes, I will keep shooting Pan F just for the detail. And because it is so editable, there are black and white films that have a lot more contrast. And there you have like these true blacks that you cannot like edit anymore. They're basically lost in the shadows. So here Pan F doesn't have it, like very high quality. Let me quickly read the comments. Yeah, Carmina, exactly. The sky doesn't have structure. Try and use shadows to help with the depth of field, perhaps darken what is in the foreground. Okay, so what T says there is a very popular method, by the way. So let me add another adjustment layer, and with that I will get another gradient. So we have a gradient filter for the sky now, but we can also add one to the foreground, and I will keep the same diagonal. So I won't make a horizontal one. Again, this is personal preference, I guess, but I'll keep with the diagonal, because the mountain also has this diagonal, and I just have the sky with the diagonal gradient filter. But what I wanted to say here, and what T mentioned, is what is popular is to also lower the shadows, for example, at the bottom. Let me turn off the exposure warning to get a little bit of more a darker foreground, to get the view of the viewer. How do you say that? To guide the viewer into the photo, which would be even nicer if you have a photo where you have some kind of like leading line that leads to something, to really darken the sky and the background. But T, that is also a very good edit. I really like it if it's darker down there. Let me quickly, cool, Steve. Yeah, I must also say, like it, Ansel Adams. Yeah, totally. On the footsteps, guys. Yeah, let's take a final look in the before and after and then move to the next one. Look, very flat, very high detail, to more contrast, two gradient filters, nothing else. So you see actually not a lot of magic, and the results are so different. Yeah. Pablo, how do you work with colors in Portra, for example? Pablo, can you quickly write a little bit more what you mean? Because the edits we just did, but you might have joined later, is like this image here was a Portra. I'm happy to answer your question if you tell me what you meant with how do you work with colors? So I'll just I'll keep working because of that lag. And Pablo, feel free to just comment and tell me what you meant with the color comment. But yeah, so I'm really happy, and you will see this. So by the way, 2 stars. And yeah, you will see this photo in one of my upcoming videos. And yeah, thanks for the suggestions. That's nice. If you change green, red, and blue. Yeah, so please keep, Pablo, please keep commenting. So what I will do is I will take, for example, the individual like colors, and I will adjust these levels, like with the compression, like I did here in the green. You see, I compress red, green, and blue. This is really weird with the lag, you know, that I speak and then until it reaches you, it's, I don't know if it's 5 to maybe 10 seconds. So I will, Pablo, I will usually really adjust red, green, and blue in more complex photos. This one, I've just adjusted green because I have green as a dominant color. And what I also did is I edited the green here in the color editor with the picker. So I picked the grass and I adjusted the hue and the saturation of the green. And in photos where we would now have oranges and reds and so on and so forth, I would go through all the colors here. Yeah. By the way, what I haven't done here, and I have done on the other photo, is I need to remove the cyan. Yeah, there was cyan, I just saw it in the upper left corner. And maybe also some pink, because there is no pink here, so we can just desaturate it. Yeah, so I'm more happy now. But Pablo, yeah, that's what I will do in color photos. So I will go through these, the level editor. And again, for those who don't use Capture One, don't worry, you have that in Lightroom and you have it in Photoshop for every color photo, by the way. Okay, Pablo, just, okay, cool, thank you. All right, next photo. What shall we do here? So here now we have these leading lines. We will be able to play around with that gradient filter again. First, I will also just convert this one to black and white. Done. And so we have really true black and white, no RGB here. Yeah, so first thing, as I always do, color compression. So I'll go to my levels again, RGB, although there's no RGB, it's just black and white. Compress the shadows. See what it does? And you can, oh, by the way, I need to enable exposure warning. You can go as far as until you get these exposure warnings. So as soon as you hit these blue things that tell you, oh, you overdid it, you can go. And you can do that for color, and you can do that for black and white. And again, big tip, if you shoot portraits, do that for colors. You will see magical skin colors. Yeah, so like I just did, I'll do it again. So usually you see flat photos, even with the best cameras, even with the most expensive ones. And then you take your levels and then you slide them and slide them. You see my mouse on the right side going towards where the curve is. And as soon as I hit it, I see in a photo in the exposure warning, and you have to turn on exposure warning for that, that now I'm hitting the level that I shouldn't. So you can just hit it a little bit and it will do magic. So it now removed every unnecessary grayish tone here that is in the scan. And it also helps, by the way, to have 24, 48-bit scans, or very high bit photos. I must say I've never tried it on JPEG. I don't think that you can do too much in a JPEG. Let's try the same with the highlights. I don't think we have any highlights to fix here, but no, I think it's fine. Yeah, so we'll keep it like this. Then the next thing, again, in my personal process is I will go to the curve and I will lift the highlights and I will lower the shadows first. Also for mood reasons. Doing a before and after. Flat, already more contrast. Now next thing, what I will do is I will play with the contrast ladder. And for that, by the way, let me look for a very good, yeah, here I think we can judge it here, or wait, let me find a good place where I can judge contrast. I think here in the stone, we see the trees, because we don't want to overdo it. Yeah, I think like this. We see now a little bit of exposure warning here. By the way, again, also for those who have joined later, maybe, this is ILFORD Pan F, shot on 35mm Leica M6 50mm Elmar. The sharpness blows me away. Like this detail, you must imagine like the films, they're like, I don't have a film here, they're really tiny. And what I have here is a huge screen zoomed in to 100%, and what it captures is amazing. Cool, so again here, before, after, before, after. I will take now again the gradient, make this foreground darker, like this. Now, I want to quickly go and overexpose here. No, I think this is, yeah. Okay, now let's see the overall photo if I go a little bit up. No, it doesn't need, that's all good. taking the brightness, it's also good. So we can go here to 0 again. Now the only thing we see here is some highlights. They don't really disturb me. We can take them away with the highlight slider, as you see. Let me take away the exposure warning. Same here for me. I think this is where I would leave it. Is there anything like we did earlier that you would do different or change? For me, this would be the photo. I would use it in the next video. I really like it. For black and white, it's so often for me that the S curve in the curves tool on the lower right does the magic when it comes to depth of field. And yeah, I'm really happy. Cool. I don't know, guys. So I will continue with these other photos. Is there any interest from your side to stay longer? Because I will now just do the same, or do you want me to stay a little bit live for a couple of more questions? Because yeah, I think the rest of the photo I will now keep editing in the afternoon, but I don't know how interesting this is for you. I don't want to bore you. Let me quickly switch to full screen so you can see me again. Yeah, Steve, yeah. Yeah, that's the thing, right? This darkening, like T said earlier, really drives the viewer into the photo. Like especially if you have stuff in the foreground going on, it really helps if you get the viewer away from it. And the same with skies. You can get so much dramatic or drama out of a sky if there is stuff to work with, of course. Yeah, but. Let me know in the chat if I shall stay on and keep editing, or if you think we have 15 watching. This is, by the way, amazing. So when I started this live stream, I really didn't know if anyone would show up, or one person, two person. So 15 watching, and I think we had a peak of 18. Really nice. I think I will keep doing this with different topics from time to time. I'm happy the setup works, that the audio works for you guys. So thumbs up in the chat or something if you want me to stay on and we just keep going, or if you think you've seen enough and ready to tune out. So I would have, if we go to capture one, I would still edit this photo here. And I would edit, actually, you know what, I would edit this photo here, this photo for sure, and this one here. Carry on? Cool. All right, so if one viewer stays, I think that's already worth it, and we can have a chat. Again, you can also, while I'm editing, you can ask me also other things. Doesn't need to be related to this specific editing. You can ask me general scanning questions, or general editing questions, or photography questions. So, all right, so let's keep going. This one might be interesting to look at also from the sharpness and what's going on here. Oops, I had a mask that was by accident. Let's see what's going on here. You also see a little trailer here. By the way, for those who have never been to Switzerland or are wondering how such a Swiss valley looks like in the mountains, so this is the Klausenpass, and the street that you see here is where I was driving, and then going up and up and up to this vantage point where I'm here. We see these little houses, like farms mostly, and yeah, we even see, you wouldn't know if I wouldn't tell, but these are cows here. So these are cows down here. This is amazing. Like, yeah, this is a film that really astonishing me. Serge, no problem. Thanks for dropping by, and yeah, catch you another time. All right. So for those who are still on or tuned in later, we're editing black and white, Pan F, ISO 50 film. And I will start editing this one now. So same here, will compress the shadows. Turning the exposure warning on again. All good. And the highlights, it's not a lot to compress here. I think a little bit less of the shadows. So that's always the first thing I do. Levels. Secondly, I go to the curve just to brighten it up. Just check comments. Steve, I'm shooting mostly black and white with my Q2 and manual modes. I really like your thoughts on that. I like the S curve. You mean, do they lead photographically, or is that the road that you're driving when you come back there up to where I'm standing here? Because, so yes, that is the road that you basically take from the valley, and you come up, and you have that little curve there, and then you continue until where I stopped and took this photo. And yeah, when the video will come out, we shot also video from within the car, so you'll see those alpine passes. And yes, they are actually connected, yeah. They are connected. So that is actually those, how do you call them, are they serpentines? So that's how you can, yeah, so that's how you go up. And yeah, so they're connected, yep. Yep, let's finish the S-curve here. So the S-curve, as you can see, gives this drama, but also it is this thing where you should not overdo it. Like if you really overdo it here, it becomes a very dark photo. I mean, maybe you want that, I don't know, but for me, at least, it's not my personal style to have so much contrast. So to have almost just white, and then you have black. I like if we have dynamic range. And that's why I also like films that are editable, like this Pan F, for example, because you can work with the shadows and you can work with the highlights, and you don't have a film that is almost like just plainly black and white and you have nothing to work with. But that is always a personal preference. There are different curves, by the way. There are also some people, let me quickly reset the curves here, that like pulling down the highlights and then pulling up the shadows. It makes it super flat, but I've seen looks like that. I've seen looks like that, especially with color photos. Some people really like that, you know, to like really get the shadows out, get this flatter image. Random question, what's your top black and white film? So I have only shot so far ILFORD HP5 ISO 400, FP4 from ILFORD ISO 125. I love that film, especially on the Mamiya, because the Mamiya has a maximum shutter speed of 1/400th of a second. So on bright days with an ILFORD HP5, you're almost lost unless you want to shoot f/22 the whole day. And I have shot Kodak Tri-X, also a very fantastic film. It's for me not what I would prefer over an ILFORD HP5, but I would say they are comparable. I'm looking forward, by the way, shooting the Pancro 400. I have a Pancro 400 from Berger. I have 2 rolls in my fridge that I bought after I saw your video. I'm really curious because I think similar to this Pan F, maybe even more, it's probably very flat and it will be fantastic to edit. So we will see Pancro also on my channel sometime later. And that's, by the way, it. I have not, yeah, I have not shot more black and white film, to be honest. I was not so, yeah, I don't know. I didn't do too many experiments so far, but my everyday black and white, from what I've seen so far and also what I follow on YouTube, what others shot, is definitely ILFORD HP5 for its versatility, especially in the Leica, which can go up to 1/1000th of a second, where I can use it during the day, and I can use an ND filter if I want to shoot like f2 during the day. But ILFORD HP5 in the Leica, and as a black and white film for the Mamiya, I would say the FP4, which is an ISO 125. Steve says, oh wait, no worries, Carmine. Thanks for joining, and I'll see you next time. Have a great rest of the weekend. Steve says, I use Lightroom and often adjust the dehaze slider to remove haze and decrease contrast. No, Steve, it doesn't. I've seen videos about that on YouTube. So Capture One doesn't have dehaze. You can create dehaze by like yourself if you want by using the adjustment layers of the filled layers of Capture One. So you can kind of like dehaze yourself. I was never a big fan of dehaze generally. Also when I used Lightroom, I sometimes miss it and then I do it manually. But yeah, straight out of the box, it doesn't have dehaze if you were thinking of maybe also using Capture One in the future. So dehaze is something that it doesn't have. And by the way, dehaze might be the only thing that I found that Capture One doesn't have, but Lightroom, and that I would sometimes miss. That's and the ability to import grayscale TIFFs straight away without converting them to RGB. But other than that, no, it just opens so far more possibilities for me. But yeah, dehaze. Many people are, by the way, complaining on the forums about that. Yeah, and now also, like earlier, we will increase the contrast, and for that, the clarity, no, the clarity is something different. So clarity we have here at the bottom in Capture One, Harald. I don't know, you probably see my mouse at the bottom. That is clarity. It's not dehaze. So clarity and dehaze are two different sliders also in Lightroom. So for Harald, I assume you're using it in German. So dehaze is really this that it removes the Nebel. So in clarity, let me slide it here. So we have clarity, and you see what it does? It does like some sort of like contrasty game. I don't know. I think I've never used it in Capture One. Let's actually zoom in and take a look. That's not a live experiment because I don't really use clarity. So for now clarity, because I know it from Lightroom, and for contrast, I always zoom in. So that is also a tip I could give you from my experience. I try to find something where I think that I'm interested in. Cool. Thanks. Thanks, T. Clarity is related to texture. Yeah. So here is maybe a good place where you can see what clarity does exactly, and especially compared to contrast. But yeah, thanks T. I didn't know this technical term that's related to texture, but what I know is that clarity in Lightroom is a different slider. But yeah, let's do clarity here a little bit and see what happens. So this is not a max clarity. So I would say it emphasizes now, yeah, the texture of especially the grain with film, to be honest. For me, not a good slider. But again, this is more personal preference. And what does contrast do? See, contrast looks completely different in clarity. But we want contrast. So a little bit of contrast. Yeah, 5. I think that's enough. If we take clarity on the macro level, so zoomed out, let me do that again. What we get now is something on that texture level. What you can think what the algorithm does, it takes those pixels and it will find, yeah, these textures, will really emphasize them. So if the scan is bad, you would actually get very weird artifacts in very fine grainy things, like for example here. So here you see now even the grain of a Pan F very accentuated. So I'll take this down again. For me, it doesn't really help, but I guess you know what? We could leave it at 10. I wouldn't print it with the clarity on, but I think for the screen it might work. Yeah, cool. All right, so we've done the shadow and highlights compression. We've done the S-curve. Now what we will do is we will pull down the highlights a little bit to get rid of the highlights in the background. There we go. Fix that as well. Now we will try the gradient filter. Let me just check. T said something in chat. T-haze reduces the haze by touching contrast and lighting, whereas clarity changes details and texture based on my experience in Lightroom. Yes, it's the same experience. And this contrast and lighting, T, what you mentioned there, this is what you would do in Capture One, especially Harald, now that you said that you are using only Capture One. You would do that here in a fill adjustment layer. So you would take a fill adjustment layer and then especially work with the contrast and lighting, and you can basically get a dehaze. I have seen YouTube videos where people were showing, there was one where I saw it very extreme. He showed a photo of New York and the skyline and a very overexposed but still hazy sky, and he used the slider in Lightroom to dehaze, and then he went to Capture One with the fill layer and adjustment layers and did it by hand, and I must really say it looked the same. I think for convenience the dehaze is quite nice in Lightroom, but yeah, you can dehaze with a fill layer. Cool, so last thing here, we have again too much going on in the foreground. I will darken it down to where these strings are. And not further, because I like this little creek here, to be honest. I like the creek, and the creek goes, and then almost like a zigzag, you see, to the stone, and then it goes to this little curvy street here. This is what I really like about this photo. So we will now drop the shadows here a little bit, just to give a little bit more contrast. And by the way, we will do the same new adjustment layer. We'll do the same on top, because we don't need those trees in the background to be so so bright. And also, by the way, pay attention, I will only drop the shadows. So I'm not dropping the exposure, because if I drop the exposure, and I've seen many people do, for example, this exposure dropping or brightness dropping, you will drop everything. You will drop also the houses, you will drop the meadows. Everything will become darker, whereas, especially for this edit now, and sometimes you might need it, but here I will just drop the shadows. I just want the trees to get darker. I do not want the houses or the meadows get darker. So I think with this, I think I'm done with this photo. 2 stars. And with done, I mean for these kinds of like adjustments, 2 stars, and moving on to the next one. By the way, there is something which I want to show you as a feature, and Lightroom also has it. If you are happy with your edits and you think you took kind of like the same shot and the same under the same light conditions with the same settings of your camera, it's the same film, and so on and so forth, you can copy the adjustments that you did on one photo and quickly bring them to another photo. All right, so what I did now is I took the adjustments from the photo we just took and applied it to this one, so that we have the base adjustments already like we did. So we already see here how the sky is more dramatic. Let me do the before and after. You see here, just by applying what we did on the other photo. This can accelerate your workflow, and you can do this in Lightroom as well. But yeah, so it doesn't work if you change the scene dramatically. I wouldn't do that because your edits will be completely off. But yeah, so here we have the same. We have the 2 adjustment layers. So here we have the what is this, the bottom or the top? Yeah, the bottom one. So here I will pull this a little bit further back because I don't want the street to be affected too much. And here we have the top adjustment layer. Oh, sorry. And here we have the top adjustment layer from the sky. There we go. So what we've done here now is we have the same adjustment layers. We have the same settings from the previous image that we copied over. And if I go on the background, you even see we have the same S-curve. So the only thing, what I must say with this photo in particular is, I think it is too dark like this. So I might go up a little bit here with my highlights. I will keep the shadows dark. I might pull the, yeah, cool. Like this, I like it a lot better. Let's quickly go to before and after. Yeah. So you see how you can turn a very flat Pan F into a very like dramatic photo. Let me quickly see. We have a comment here from Steve. Do you ever use the overall vignetting slider to darken all of the corners and emphasize the subject? Might not be a good idea on images you have worked on so far today. Yes, I do. And you are right. I wouldn't apply vignetting to at least the images that I have had so far. The only one where I could imagine doing that would be this one here. Let's actually try it. So on the lower right corner here in my Capture One setup, but also in Lightroom, you have a vignetting slider where you can go like, you know, either up and down. So here, yeah, just minimally. But Steve, yeah, I use it sometimes. But the vignetting, what it does is similar to these gradient masks, but it really plays with the brightness. So it will darken everything. So when we think of this image that we edited, the vignetting, we can do it now. You will see what happens. See, it darkens everything, also the meadows and the houses. So yeah, I think I'll go back to 0. For me, having a gradient mask and then controlling if I want to play with the highlights or the shadows, or even do a second S-curve, right? So now we are on this layer that has the gradient filter. I can do my own S-curve on it. You see, the rest of the image stays same. I can even say, you know what, I want the houses to be even brighter, and I want the trees to go like even darker. Do you see this? And that, I actually like it a lot more now. Wow. And that you cannot do with vignetting. So long story short, yes, I sometimes use vignetting, but only if those corners, I really want them darker. Here, what you've seen in these edits, I didn't want the general corner darker. I wanted, for example, just the shadows darker. So this is where I would think like if I would want vignetting or not. I hope I pronounce it correctly. Is it vignetting? I guess, I hope so. Yeah, so next, I think I want this a little bit brighter, and I will pull the shadows in a second, but it's too dark for me. I'm kind of like, you probably, like, for those who know me from my channel and you've seen my photos, I like photos when they are really bright. And also my color negatives, I shoot them one stop overexposed and then use normal like light meter readings to really give like more, I don't know, like more light into the frames. So yeah, now I upped the exposure, but I still want these dramatic shadows. So let me, exposure warning is on, so that's good. Cool. I like this more. So 2 stars here. By the way, so I talked earlier, and also for those who joined later, about the star system. So 1 star is basically, I selected the photos for, yes, it's worth editing for me, and I've done the cropping. And 2 stars is when I'm done with these edits. What we haven't done yet, and what I'm doing for an image to even get a 3 stars, is I will go and zoom into the images, and I will fix these things. You see here these defects. I don't know if they're in the film or if they happened because of the scan, or if you have dust. So this is not dust, but if I have dust in the photos, I would go, you know, and then go through a whole image and see is there any defect. And then when I'm done with that, then I'm at 3. We have a comment here from Harald. A very good tool for this is Lichtregler from the Farb Balance tool, the color balance. And then, yeah, you're right, Harald, yeah. So what Harald meant is this tool here. So you have the color balance and then you have your shadows, midtone, and highlights. So you can either do the three-way master or you can go shadow, midtone, highlights. Absolutely, Harald, you're right. You can do it in here, especially for color photos, by the way. This is something that I use very often. Hi, Claude from Luxembourg. Thanks for joining. Claude, because you just, I guess, I don't know if you just joined or just said hi. So we're editing Pan F 35mm that I shot here in Switzerland on the Klausenpass. And T said, here's a suggestion. When you finish shooting Pancro 400, make another live editing the images you get. Since it's a flatter film, it will be interesting to create and explore dramatism with Pancro. Happy to do so. So, and also now that I see that we have 16 people watching my first live stream, I'm a really small channel. Thanks again, guys, that you even joined me here in this editing session and that you're commenting so nicely. I'm happy to do a Pancro editing, and I'm really curious, T, myself, because I have high hopes for Pancro, to be honest, to see how a very flat film looks like and then how we can get it dramatic. And talking about flat and dramatic, so Pan F is also not very contrasty. And since we're here on the footsteps of Ansel Adams, as we have learned, let's take a look at the pure scan. So this is the scan. This is how ILFORD Pan F Plus comes from the scanner. And when I scan black and white film, by the way, I don't really play around with all kinds of settings in contrast and levels in the scanning itself, and then not have the possibility to do that in edit. By the way, do I hit my mic here? I should stop doing this. So yeah, so we get this very flat scan, and because I scan all my black and white films very flat, I get an idea on how flat they are by nature. And then here is our edit. So I think also here it's really incredible what you can get out of a film if you really try to edit. If you not just go scan the photo and then just like pull highlights and shadows and not do anything else. I think it is really worth exploring what we here just did, because we will get so much out if you zoom in here. Like, because of the contrast that is now up, we have the shadow, so we get those trees a little bit darker. There's just so much more. Look at this, the flat scan. And our edit. By the way, also here, because I don't know, I'm repeating myself, I'm really sorry, but this, we see the windows on this little house here. And if I zoom out, that house is kind of like, it's covered by my mouse, and the whole thing would be on a 35mm little film. This is insanely cool. Like, I'm really impressed by Pan F. So if you haven't shot Pan F and you have, landscapes and mountain panoramas like this, it's insane. By the way, we can do something to this image that I just saw that will give more drama, and we can try it. I hope we don't go into the kitsch area. We also have tools, so I'll create a new adjustment layer, new empty adjustment layer. So I'll do a new adjustment. You have this, by the way, not as a layer function, but as a tool in Lightroom as well. We will now paint a little bit here, so we can make the size of this brush. So we'll take a brush here now, and we'll do more basically darkroom editing here. Because I don't like that we have so much gray here, but we have such dark trees. Let me just quickly go through the comments here, and then I'll show you. Hello, Mr. M. How do you get your scans into C1? I scan as using Silverfast. See, but it won't allow me to import them. Can you explain? Yes, Soren. First of all, thanks for joining in and being part of this live stream. I mentioned this in the beginning. Um, so if you do scan black and white film, black and white TIFFs with Silverfast, which I also do with Silverfast 8 AI Studio, um, Capture One only accepts RGB photos. So I highly recommend keep scanning in grayscale. So don't scan black and white with 48-bit or 24-bit color in Silverfast. Keep scanning a grayscale, but then go to your favorite photo editing tool, load that photo, and go to the color space and convert it to RGB. So let me quickly show you something. I'll blend in now GIMP. For those who've joined later, I mentioned it earlier when I switched away from Lightroom and the Adobe subscription with Photoshop, I switched over also completely to GIMP. GIMP is a free image manipulation program that, for me at least, can do everything that I need. And Soren, just for you, what you can do, if you want to use GIMP, by the way, maybe you already use it, you can let me know in the comments. I have written a script for GIMP where I call it convert to RGB, where I select a source folder where my scans are from Silverfast, and then I select a destination folder, for example, wherever I want to have them for later editing in Capture One, and then the output type, for example, TIFF, I created PSD, JPEG, whatever, PNG, but yeah, I use TIFF in Capture One, and then I hit the OK button, and it will batch load my scans. And not like it won't even open them. It's really just a script that uses the GIMP engine in the background. Just really quickly loads, converts, loads, converts, loads, converts, and then drops them into my Capture One folder, and then I can use them in Capture One. I hope this helps. I'm sure you can do that in Photoshop. Again, I would be surprised if GIMP can do anything that Photoshop can't do. For me, it's also the other way around, since I don't do photo manipulations usually, so I use GIMP for this kind of stuff. The rest I do in Capture One. But yeah, Soren, let me know in the comments if this helps you. No worries, T. Thanks for joining. I will also, by the way, after we're done with this photo, and I'll show you what I do with the brush. I'll also, I think, stop the stream for today, and we will do this again in the future. So T, see you next time. Thanks for joining and all your tips and comments. And by the way, guys, if you don't know who T is, check out her channel. She has an amazing channel herself where she does a lot of stuff about film photography. It's really amazing and really great edits and also music. So check out her channel. And yeah, so last thing we want to do here, I just showed you, I have brushed in a layer. So let me click on it. I was just painting into this photo. What we want to do here is we want to get the shadows down here as well. And oh, it doesn't even have too many shadows, but you see the difference. We want to get these parts of the wood in the background also darker. Of course, there is mist, there's haze, there's fog as well, but we want them a little bit darker. Let me try with the brightness. There, we need to be careful with the brush. We can get, yeah, we need to be careful. I think that's all we can do, just pull down the shadows, otherwise we will have some weird effects. But yeah, there's not much we can do other than that. Yeah. I mean, we could pixel peep now if we want, and to really cleanly separate the patches with trees, but I won't do that. I think that's all. Yeah, let's take a final look at before and after. So we went from this photo here to this photo. And now, before we're done, and to show you what I would do to get something to use the color balance tool, if the shadows don't work. Let me try, Harald, if it works here. Let's see. So we're staying on adjustment layer 3. Yes, you're right. Oh my God. I should do this more often with black and white. It does. the shadow perfect. Let's see what the midtones do. No, midtones you cannot do. Or you can do, but you see the brush. Yes, that did the trick. There's not, like, I cannot pull them further down. Like, oh yeah, I can. There we go. This is max. But yeah, that did the trick actually. That's cool. I mostly use it on color, but now I see how to also use this on black and white. Thanks, Harald. This is really cool. Yeah. Yeah, so now we're at 2 stars, and I told you that there is something that is missing until I give a photo a 3-star in my photo management workflow, and that is fix these things here. So I usually go through the whole image and see if we have defects, and we have here some straight away here. So what we will do here is we will take the healing tool. There are healing tools, of course, also in Lightroom. There are healing tools in Photoshop and Capture One. By the way, Capture One with this latest release has done a major step forward when it comes to healing. So yeah, we will use this healing tool. What they have mainly also done from a workflow perspective, not from a functionality perspective, is if I now click on the healing, I didn't do it yet, you will see on the right side how it will add a new adjustment layer by itself. And it's a heal layer, you see. By the way, you can also rename the layer. I didn't do it now for these edits. And then you can take this one here and you can move it to wherever you think your healing looks better. So yeah. Oops, sorry. That was by accident. So yeah, I think somewhere here. Anyway, you can also draw like bigger patches like this, for example, or just a single spot. In Capture One, you can do as many as you like. So yeah. So if you go back here, these are fixed now. And again, you have the same in Lightroom. What I realized in Lightroom is that if you have, I don't know, let's say 50, 60 or 100 of them, depends on what you're healing, the performance went really down, which I have not observed yet in at least this release of Capture One. There's one more here. Look at this. Sneaky one. Yeah. Let's see what it does here with the trees. Actually quite good. Wow. Okay. Yeah. And other than that, I don't see this anymore, or more of these here. Cool. So this one is now 3 stars. We have edited this one. Let's check if there is some issue here as well. So far, so good. No, this is part of the photo. Yeah, that's it. Okay, 3 star. Perfect. What's up here? No, that's not a defect. The stone. Yeah. Oh, that's sweet. There's a flower here. I don't know the English name of it. Nice. Also 3 star. Perfect. Works. What do we have here? No grain. No, sorry, no dust. I got lucky with scanning. By the way, I have 2 scanners. I have a Reflecta ProScan 10T for 35mm only, and an Epson V850 Pro for like a flatbed if I want a batch scan. These are scanned with ProScan 10T at 5000 dpi. There's nothing here. No, there is something here. No, it's not. I thought this was dust, but this is like a bush. Clean scan. Perfect. Okay, 3 star. Next one. These were the color edits, by the way, for those who have maybe joined later. So there's a before and there's an after. And I now see that we need to make this, we need to adjust the green again. Yeah. perfect. We did a color editing earlier, so where we were looking at how to color correct certain behavior, and in this case it was Portra. We have removed cyan and pink. There was a cyan and pink layer. We have changed the blue down here. But yeah, anyway, so let's quickly. This is a medium format scan from a Mamiya RZ67. That's why here we have a little bit more detail. But also I see no dust, nothing to correct here. So 3 stars. Here in these situations, by the way, it's really hard to spot if there's any like dust or anything going on. I see here that we can pull the shadows further back in this image. We don't need all that detail. There's a lot of detail in the image, in that film in medium format. But yeah, it's almost impossible to spot dust. But I think I also have a very clean scan here. At least nothing I can immediately see. Cool, so yeah, then let's do this last correction here. We take again the linear gradient filter. And now I will probably just like take the exposure down a little bit. And then parts of the shadow, because I really don't want that detail. I really want it dark up there. Cool, so 3 stars as well. So with this, let me switch to full screen so that you can see me full screen again. Worked quite well. Cool. So for those who are still here with me, I see it's 12 people. I think I want to conclude. I think these are the photos I wanted to edit and share my editing process with you guys. Let me know also if you want me to once maybe do a session on just my photo workflow, my library, how do I manage it, and again make it transferable between Lightroom and Capture One. The differences are not that big. What I do with these star systems and so on and so forth. And like T said earlier, who already dropped from the live stream, I will also potentially do a live stream on first time editing Pan F. So Pan F is a film I haven't shot yet. It's a very flat black and white film, ISO 400. But yeah, with this, let me know if there's anything else you want to see or you have a question about that I can answer. If not, I think with this I want to conclude today's live stream, and I'm really happy that it worked out, that the sound works, the light works, and you see a little bit more of the room here, and my cameras, by the way. We have here at the bottom the Leicas, and the box camera on top. We have the Fuji Instax Square, and we have the Mamiya RZ67. Yeah. So with this, I would like to say thank you. And yeah, it was really cool. And thanks also for the tips. I've learned again something. I always learn from you guys when you comment also on my videos, not just in the live stream. And thanks for participating in the live stream and commenting and letting me know. And yeah, it was really cool. So I think I'm ready now to use these photos for one of my upcoming videos. I have 3 videos in the pipeline. The next video, by the way, will be tomorrow. Tomorrow, 4 p.m., I think, yeah, Central European time, will be a video about ILFORD Ortho Plus. Oh my God, I forgot that. ILFORD Ortho Plus was another black and white film I shot. I didn't mention it earlier. Nice, Steve. Vielen Dank. Yes, vielen Dank auch an dich. Thank you. Label images before importing them. How do you mean that, Steve? Maybe as so that I can answer your question. So label, I would like to see how you might do to label images. I'm not sure I understand label. Do you mean like file naming before you import them, or the folder structure where I store images in my before I import them into the catalog? I'm not sure what you mean with labeling. Okay, maybe with keywords and ratings. But Steve, what I do is these things I do then in the imported library. in the import tool. Ah, actually, you know what? I don't do that. Funny. I know I should. Now I know what you mean. You mean this stuff here, like metadata, naming, file info. I don't do it. Maybe I should. Maybe I should. One of the reasons why I don't do it is I don't even know how I can get that information if I move catalogs. So when I switched to Capture One, for example, I didn't import my Lightroom catalog. I think there is an import tool, I never tried, but I was not even interested. So even from my old photos, I wouldn't have that metadata anymore. But let's say if I do a live stream in the future about importing and catalog stuff and how my workflow is, I can touch upon the point, Steve, because I have an opinion for what you can use it. It's just I personally don't, but I can make some suggestions when I would use it and for what I would use it if I would use it. So I think that we can do. Thanks for that comment. I will take a note, by the way. Cool. If there are no other questions, then yeah, thanks again for joining. It was really great. It was a lot of fun for me actually to do a live stream for a change. I don't know if we, okay, cool. So, I think I didn't switch actually to Capture One, but yeah. So you meant this tool here, right? Sorry, I didn't switch to Capture One. Yeah, so let me switch back to myself. Yeah, so I think the lag is actually more than 5 to 10 seconds. Yeah. Okay, cool. Anyway, so from my side, this is all that I wanted to show you. And yeah, it made editing the photos for my next video definitely more fun. And yeah, thanks again for joining. We still have 13 people watching. That is really great. I highly appreciated that you joined. I hope to see you next time as well in the broadcast. I think we have now a delay, which is yeah, I think half a minute or so in the meantime. But I also see no more questions in the live chat. So with this, I will conclude this live stream. Thanks again for watching. It was really, really amazing and not the last time I did it. Thanks a lot.